Hi, good afternoon, viewers, and welcome to Matters of Public Importance on Channel 6. I'm Gail Teixeira, Opposition Chief Whip, representing the People's Progressive Party, civic members of Parliament, and the People's Progressive Party. On this program, we shall focus on matters of public importance, bring you information and discussions on issues and matters that have concern to you, the Guyanese public, every Thursday between 12:30 and 1:30 right here on Channel 6. Before we get into the meat of the program, let me do what I always do. That is to remind you of the numbers, telephone numbers for you to use when calling in on the program. 225-0010 and 225-0008. And then, as I always remind you every week, that the Office of the Leader of the Opposition is open at 304 Church Street between New Garden and Peter Rose Street, opposite the Georgetown Cricket Club. And we are open from 9 to about 5 in the afternoons, Monday to Friday, and Saturdays from 9 to 2. And we have members of Parliament who come in on a scheduled basis almost every day. There's an MP there to hear your views and to take representation on matters. The telephone number at the Office of Leader Opposition is 225-3432. 225-3432. Just remember, 32 members of Parliament of the PPP, the last two digits are 32. And of course, before I get in the program, please let me congratulate all the children who wrote the CXC and CAPE exams. And I'm saying all the children, not just those who are the high flyers, but all the kids who wrote the exams. Some passed, some didn't. Don't be defined by the CXC and the CAPE exams. Keep trying and do your best, and everything will work out. Last week I'd informed you that Freedom Radio had an anti-discrimination committee and has established a hotline that persons can call to report if they feel they're being discriminated in any way and be given advice on what to do. So the telephone number is 225-1479. 225-1479, the hotline of the Freedom Radio Anti-Discrimination Committee. Last week's program focused on the last parliamentary sitting on Monday, August the 8th, before the recess, with exposures by the parliamentary opposition while questioning ministers about the two supplementary financial papers amounting to almost $2 billion. So this program will focus again on lack of transparency and accountability and violations of the Procurement Act and financial regulations. And I'm calling this program Scandalous Scandals and Scams. Have you, our listeners, viewers, considered or calculated the number of scandals that have been exposed by the PPPC parliamentary opposition and by some media houses over the first year of the APNU-FC coalition government? It is mind-boggling. At first, at the beginning, many people thought this was a result of their being new in government. Others thought that this was a result of incompetence and ineptitude. But month after month, the public is being bombarded like shock and awe as one scandal is exposed after another. The fact that the government, up to now, still blames the former PPPC government for all the ills and mistakes they are making doesn't help them at all, because in fact they are in the saddle running the government, and these scandals are emanating of their own doing and making. I have with me today on the program former Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Mr. Anil Nandalal, MP, who is now the PPPC sectoral spokesperson in the National Assembly on Constitutional and Legal Affairs. Anil has been extraordinarily busy both in the Parliament chambers and in the courts defending the Constitution and the laws of Guyana in the face of this government's running roughshod over the Constitution, human rights, and the laws of this country. I'm very pleased to welcome Anil Nandalal again to our program, to Matters of Public Importance.
Thank you very much, Gail, and good day to the viewers out there.
Anil, I was going over my files and found that since this government took office, we've found as a PPPC, we've discovered, I should say, and exposed approximately 16 scandals. And I'm saying scandalous scandals and scams because they're variations on what those words mean. In fact, we're not alone, as no less than the Attorney General of Guyana and the Transparency Institute of Guyana, and even some of the apologists for the government, have expressed profound concerns about what is happening. Well, before I ask you to correct me and tell me what I've forgotten or what I've got wrong, let me just read out quickly what are my 16's scandalous scandals and scams. Okay? First, the first act of the government was to give themselves enormous salary increases between 50 to 100% of what the former government ministers received. This was quietly done in September 2015, and we had to struggle in Parliament to bring a motion to reverse this, but of course it was defeated. So that's September 2015. 2, hiring of 33 foreign honorary advisors to assist the government and a top-heavy bureaucracy of multiple and numerous presidential and ministerial advisors, which, despite questions that you asked, and have not been disclosed properly to the Parliament up to now. So between July and December, we have this huge batch of advisors being brought in at huge cost. 3, the dismissal of 1,972 Amerindian Community Service officers at one stroke of the pen, with no cause, and despite a promise by the Vice President, number 3, no? Number 3
Yes.
Vice President, no, number 4 Vice President, beg pardon, in Parliament.
Number 4, yes.
Yes, during the 2015 budget debate, that they would bring a new program to hire Amerindian youth. What have they done is, in fact, replaced the community service program with what they call HAZE. I always get it mixed up, Hinterland Entrepreneurial Youth Skills something, which is a training program for 6 months, and afterwards the students are on their own. July to August 2015 was the promise. They have now trained 400 youth, and of course, the children, the young people then have to find jobs. 4, specialty hospital, giving the contract to a company that the Vice President Ramjatan was its lawyer prior to them getting into government. But this contract was given without a tender and at a price yet unknown. So that's August 2015 to September 2015. 5, the Rhodesia case, which you are very, very familiar with, which the APNU AFC caused the case going to the CCJ in the 10th Parliament by defeating twice an attempt of the PPC government to amend the law. The government now has settled despite the fact that the company owes millions and millions of dollars in taxes to Guyana. So that was sometime late last year.
Yeah.
6, the write-off of debts owed to the GRA and the nation by DDL worth billions of dollars, and these billions of dollars are now lost. This was exposed in April 2016 only because the DDL went to put out a press statement announcing that they'd had this arrangement, this write-off. Otherwise, we would have been none the wiser. 7, other write-offs of debts to other companies who financed the APNU AFC electoral campaign. And as Trotman said, and Minister Trotman and former Speaker of the House said, these companies have to be compensated for their financial investment, also worth hundreds of millions of dollars. April 2016. 8, write-offs by the APNU AFC dominated Georgetown Municipal Council to many companies who also financed them for millions of dollars owed in rates and taxes. April-May 2016. 9, hundreds of millions of dollars spent by the government and mayor and city council on the clean-up campaign with no public tendering and the selection of companies, in some cases actually creating new companies to do the work. No accountability and refusal of the mayor and town clerk to allow a forensic audit. So that's from September 2015 right up to April 2016. 10, parking meters contract, and the government sits by and does nothing to stop it. This will start on September 1st. And so that was April 2016 to the present. 11, Durban Park Development Project for the Jubilee celebrations. The government refuses to provide information on the private company who was in charge of the preparations of the Durban Park project prior to the Minister of Public Infrastructure being instructed to take over the project. And this was, of course, on the orders of the number 1 in the country. Who was this private company? We do know that the Minister Patterson spent $150 million from his maintenance budget in April 2016 and requested another $400 million in August 2016. That's bringing it to $550 million, if my maths are right. But questions are how much did the government give to the private company before the April, how many companies gave donations in cash and kind, and how much was given to this private company. It is estimated that the cost, when finally calculated and exposed for the Durban Park for one-day event, will be approximately $1 billion. Remember, too, that the Auditor General, around the end of July 2016, publicly stated that monies were also used from the Ghana Defence Force budget to contribute to the Durban Park project. So all this is taking place between December 2015 and May 2016. Of course, the figures for the GDF are unknown, except what we can try to read between the lines in the supplementary financial budget, covered up over Operation Dragnet and Operation, what was the other one? Greenheart.
Greenheart.
Yeah. 12. 12 and 13. Last week alone, there were two scandals, new scandals. The pharmacy bond and this contract was never tendered, never went to public tender, given to a Linden Holding Company by the Ministry of Health. And of course, the BK International settlement of $1.17 billion for Hags-Bosch by the Ministry of Communities. So that's two scandals, making it 13. 14 and 15 are two fuel scandals relating to the fuel licenses and importing of fuel for companies that are made up of and related to top officials in the government who have no fuel bonds, no storage facilities, and even in some cases, no offices. And of course, this is parallel with the withdrawal of the fuel importation license to the Chinese company, which has invested millions of US dollars for developing modern storage facilities, which can be seen at any time when you go into the Kingston area. And of course, you know, one of the persons who had a license is no other than Dr. Van West Charles, the CEO of the Guyana Water Inc., and a number of other officials of the GWI are part of a new company that was granted a license in November 2015. Of course, Mr. Van West Charles says there's no conflict of interest in all of this. This is his latest statement today. So that brings us to 15. 16 is an ongoing one, and that is constant and frequent violation of the Procurement Act by line ministries. For example, in August 8th sitting, the Minister of Agriculture admitted that he had not, nor had the NDI, gone out to tender for works totaling $234 million due to emergency works in regions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10. And in fact, these monies should have been put in the consolidated fund and not the contingency fund. So, Arnold, did I forget any scandals and scams? My total is 16 that we know of. And I just want to say they've been in government from June 10th, 2015. 14 months. Would I be wrong to say there's a scandal for each month on average? But August 2016 took the cake with 3 scandals: drug bond, BK International, and fuel license for the head of GWI. They have been exposed with more scandals in 14 months than successive PPPC administrations were accused of in 23 years. Do you agree with that summation?
I agree, except that you have omitted a few scandals.
Oh, I did. No, please enlighten me.
And let us start with the salary increase.
Yes.
We have to keep reminding the population that when we first learned of the salary increase, because it was exposed in the press, Minister Trotman came out and denied and said to the nation very clearly that this administration will never increase salary to that extent, and that we were malicious to accuse them of such an atrocity. Lo and behold, we learned that they had surreptitiously put that in the official gazette as the law requires them, and we found it in a very remote part of the official gazette. Then additionally, not only that happened in September,
right,
but they were not content to take that increase from September. They made it retroactive to June the 1st. Having taken office on or about the 20th, thereabout, of May, they spent that week of May, partying and celebrating and so on, and moving into offices.
Right.
So they did not do a single hour work But from June the 1st, when one would assume that they begun to function as a collective government, they increased their salary from that date.
Right.
So that's important. But they refused, when they eventually gave the public servant increase, they refused to make it retroactive to January. They gave public servants an increase. Of course, they promised 25%. When you calculated it, they only gave 5%, but they only made it retroactive from December to June. Normally, public servants have become accustomed to an increase going retroactive
To January. Yes.
as was done on the PPP. So we need to put those important ingredients in when we're speaking about the salary increase. Another scandal that you omitted to mention is, thus far, the president of Guyana, and breaking all precedents in this regard, have pardoned over 100 odd persons, convicted felons. Some of them are back in the prison. I know of one particular individual who recently was caught red-handed in Rose Hall committing a very violent robbery. We were told when the president launched this initiative of pardoning people that he will pardon young people and those convicted for non-violent offenses.
Exactly.
Well, this young man, he was not that young either. This was a middle-aged person who was serving a term of imprisonment for robbery with violence.
Oh my. Yes, I remember.
Right? So the president was not truthful, I say respectfully, when he led the nation to believe that he was exercising this benign discretion to pardon juvenile offenders convicted of minor, trivial, frivolous offenses and non-violent offenses. That was not the truth. But more fundamentally, as you know, the nation needs to know what principles and what processes are undergone, or principles applied by the president when he selects these persons. And we have asked,
Yes.
using the parliamentary process, for this kind of information. We want the names of all the persons who have been pardoned so far. We want their antecedents. We want the offense for which they were pardoned. We want to know their personal information. We want to know on what basis they were selected by the president, because the president keeps saying that he's following a process and a procedure. Lo and behold, when we asked that question in the parliament, it was disallowed by the speaker.
The speaker said you were abusing the right.
Yes, I
to
was
question,
abusing the right
which
to question.
is unbelievable.
Then we have, so that's a scandal by itself.
Right.
That the nation, you have a president who keeps pardoning persons who have been convicted by the criminal justice system in an open and transparent criminal justice system, and the president, in a very opaque manner, keep releasing these persons. So you have the executive, the judiciary performing its functions, using billions of taxpayers' dollars in the process to convict persons in accordance with the legal system and the principles of law in the country, and the president, without any known principles, keep releasing them. That is a violent conflict of separation of powers. And that by itself is a constitutional scandal. And then you have the local government minister, after we would have gone to an elections, and there are tied results, local government elections, in relation to 6 local government organs, 1 municipality, and 5 NDCs. And the law clearly says that in such a situation, you must go back to the electorate for the electorate to break that tie between the chairpersons at the local level. And the minister usurps the whole functions of the electorate, and in violation of the law, selects arbitrarily a person who he wants to be the chairman. That is another scandal that we have to record and keep talking
And in fact, all
about.
6 LA local authorities, 3 were won by the PPP, by plurality,
That's
and 3 by
correct.
themselves. The persons he appointed as chair, vice chair, or deputy mayor and
Were
were
all
all APNU.
UPNU people,
Right.
UPNU persons. Then we have the inauguration ceremony at the stadium. Up to now, we don't know how much money was spent and from whence the money came. There was an attempt by a minister to explain in the parliament. I believe she said, Mr. Harman said at a press conference, some over 200 million was expended. A minister, I don't know, out of error or by mistake, disclosed that 50 million was spent and then sought to retract that statement and blame a reporter for misrepresenting her. Fortunately, the Hansard recorded her as saying what she said. And then we had the removal of millions of dollars, if not hundreds of $1 million of steel from the Ministry of Health compound by the very controversial BK International. That steel came into this country, was imported by Surendra Engineering Company, the contractor whom the government got a judgment. The government intended to levy on that steel to recover that judgment. The government paid the duties and all the costs in relation to the storage of the steel and took custody of the steel. Then we had a change of government, and within the first week of this government changing, Brian Tiwari was permitted to take the steel, purportedly levying on a judgment which he had from Surendra. But his interest and his welfare was allowed to supersede that of the state and the taxpayers. So that is a scandal by itself. And I am sure, Gail, that I would have omitted
Some more.
some of the scandals. So yes, I believe that we are averaging more than 2 scandals per month.
Yeah.
If you-
With
if you-
your new 6 and my 6, that's 22. So we're moving up the ladder, and it's only 14 months.
Exactly.
That's what's the shocking thing is that, I mean, we're not saying that any government can survive without any scandal throughout a term of office. It does happen from time to time, and sometimes unknowingly or unwittingly. But this government is getting a track record that's unbelievable. I mean, it's phenomenal. As you said, it's almost to a month if we start tracking it. And they seem totally disinterested in doing anything about it. All they do is deny and move on, And Luncheon, for example, had said at the public forum last week
Yes.
that was held at Sleep In on what is going on in the government. And Roger said that, their attitude is want to take it, shove it, stuff it,
Yes.
Don't care, so what? You're upset about it, you're angry about it, they're in government.
But when you look at the various responses given as is published in today's papers,
Right.
given by Van West Charles,
Yes.
when these questions were asked of him, he told the Times newspaper not to ask him nonsense, that he has better things to do. And then he told the Stabrook news reporter something similar, that don't disturb him now, and they have the gall to call him. That's the kind of approach.
Well, remember, this is the same minister that we had when he called a special meeting of contractors, saying they wanted X million for
That's correct.
in Region 9 wells.
Region 9 wells.
And where contractors were called who didn't attend the meeting and told they had to give donations.
That's correct.
And when we asked in Parliament, we couldn't get proper answers of where these wells were, and was the money given as a private account, or was it put in the ministry's account or Region 9 account, and so on. So that this gentleman is developing an interesting track record.
And
And he only got the job sometime around,
Yeah.
what was it, October last year? So
October last year,
Yeah.
and he got this license. His company got this license in November.
And he's claiming that I saw something in the paper saying that, no, this was done before he was part of this company before. But he must have known October the 1st when he became CEO GWI that, I better correct myself with this company, because this company is going to be just what do you call, maybe bringing oil for Gaiwa or whatever else.
But what is significant, Gail, is the speed
Yeah.
at which this company
Yeah.
was able to acquire a license. This company was formed only in February,
Yes.
and in November, just a few months, it was able to acquire 3 licenses: license to transport, license to store, and license to import, license to wholesale as well. Now, having some familiarity, Gail, with the GEA procedure,
Right.
because I was the legal advisor for GEA for a number of years, I helped to craft the GEA Act as well as the regulations. The regulations are over 150 pages in length. They are quite onerous. Legitimate business people who have been dealing with fuel for years, for 40 and 50 years, have had tremendous difficulty in complying with these regulations. The environmental impact assessment alone that is required, it's a process that takes nearly a year. The bond, the storage facilities that one has to get before one qualifies for the license is an immaculate premises, and a whole host of firefighting and fire prevention devices have to be located. The premises itself has to be located only in particular areas. And there are a number of other requirements that you have to have. The entire process in terms of acquisition of the materials alone and getting the various department of government and state to certify each
Exactly.
part of these facilities, because fire has to come, the environment has to come. If it is in a local authority area, then the NDC and the RDC have to come. And then if there are health requirements, that so you have the public health people have to come.
Right.
There are a number of state agencies and government organizations that have to come to look at these premises to certify them. There is no way that all of those things can be accomplished in the few months that this company was able to accomplish it.
But the press says they have no storage facility for fuel.
But I am sure that they're going to say that the storage facility is not at their headquarters.
Well, that's what they said, but they didn't
Right.
say where either.
Exactly. They're going to, but the man is not speaking. This is one public officer who does not believe that he's answerable to the public.
No, well, I had that experience with him with the Region 9 issues, you know that. So that but the issues are that the government is allowing these things to go, because even with the drug bond, there were cabinet decisions that approved this,
Yeah.
even though these did not go to tender.
And there is this attempt to disconnect the government and to throw Minister Norton under the bus, as though Norton was acting on a frolic of his own.
Yeah.
That Norton was errant.
Yeah.
And was acting outside of the collective. The truth of the matter is, as disclosed by the Prime Minister and as explained in the Committee of Supply, this was a decision of the government.
Yeah.
The President was chairing cabinet, the Prime Minister was there, and the entire cabinet was there. They deliberated upon the terms of this contract. To them, I don't know how they justified to themselves a rental of $12.5 million for a property located at Sussex Street. I don't care which property you're talking about on Sussex Street, whether it's Gafour's Bond or whether it is even the largest commercial property on Sussex Street, cannot yield a rent of $12.5 million. And therefore, that ought to excite the suspicion of any rational mind. But this cabinet sat as a collective and saw nothing wrong with it.
But they must have been known they were violating the Procurement Act. There was no sole sourcing, that permit from NPTAB. How can the cabinet decide to award without going to tender?
That is one dimension of this fiasco that has not really assumed the prominence that it should. The contract is ipso facto illegal
Yes.
because it violates the law, the Procurement Act.
Because remember, it's the same Ramjit Hanum and them who insisted on the amendment that said that cabinet powers in relation to contracts and tendering was reduced to no objection only. So this had to come from NPTAB or whatever, straight through because of the value of the contract, come to cabinet with a recommendation. Cabinet can only say yes or no. But this is where there was no tender.
And then the controversy, Gail, was compounded by the cabinet appointing a subcommittee of cabinet to investigate cabinet. And they did that in 1 hour. It is the fastest inquiry in the entire world.
Well, they said they went to visit the pond. They were satisfied that it reached WHO standards. But I'd love to sit and interview Mr. Trotman and ask him, what are the WHO international standards? He doesn't have a clue what he's talking about.
And then you had...
This is a cover-up.
You have the Prime Minister of the country, First Vice President, sitting on this committee, but is not here. He is not. This is the first time in my life I am seeing a Prime Minister sitting on a cabinet committee and is not the chairperson. That's the first thing. Secondly, 3 lawyers. Harman is a lawyer, Trotman is a lawyer, the Prime Minister is a lawyer. These are 3 lawyers who are examining the details of this decision and have not once addressed their mind to the illegality. There is one area in which they have training. It is the law. They don't have training in public health.
No.
But they went to talk about public health. They don't have training about value, real estate value and rental value, but they spoke about that. The one single area that they have training in, which is the law, and whether the contract violates the law, they didn't speak about that.
They avoided that judiciously.
So,
and therefore, we're not wrong to call it an intentional cover-up.
It is a kangaroo set up to, I don't know who they intended to placate, because that can't placate any reasonable person, that an inquiry was held. What kind of inquiry is concluded? The tribunal was appointed at 10, and at 12 it reports its finding. 2 hours. 1 hour they spend at the bond, and 1 hour back in the office.
Yeah.
And Mr. Trotman briefs the press at about 12 o'clock. The fastest inquiry in the entire world.
And then I want you to explain, because our viewers may not, and listeners may not be au fait with the Hagbash issue, because that has a history to it that I think the public needs to know about.
The Hagbash issue...
And BK International.
And BK International. BK International and Puran Brothers, in a joint venture, signed an agreement with the government in 2009 for a 10-year contract to construct and manage a garbage disposal plant at Hagbosh. They took possession of the site on or about 2011, and they began. By 2013, it was discovered that the BK, first of all, kicked out Puran Brothers from the inception.
Right.
And BK assumed sole custody and control of the site. By 2013, the government began to see gross negligence and gross breaches of contract by the contractor. The contractor was written to several times, identifying the defects and calling upon him to rectify. He ignored that. The president himself got involved and called the contractor at several meetings, presided over by the president, the Minister of Finance, the Attorney General, myself, and several other ministers. In an attempt to persuade the contractor to correct these breaches, these efforts were futile. The IDB, the funding agency, said, look, they will not continue to fund this project because this contractor is doing an atrocious job. Get him off the site or we will terminate the contract. Get him off the site or we will withdraw funding. A notice to terminate was issued in February of 2015. The contractor challenged the notice in the court.
Right.
By that time, the government changed. A team headed by Patterson, Ministers Patterson and Bulkan went to the site on several occasions and created great furore in the press about the state of the site, about the gross negligence of the contractor, about the shoddy and substandard work of this contractor. They took DNI people and a whole team, and they had a big spread in the newspapers
I remember.
lasting several days,
I remember.
lambasting this contractor. The contractor was able to, in the court, quash the termination notice and got an order removing him from the site. The current Attorney General, because the government had changed by that time, that decision of the court was in November 2015. The current Attorney General filed an appeal. One has to assume that he had good grounds to do so.
So the court then put the contractor back?
The contractor never vacated the site.
Okay. Yeah.
But the court granted an order preventing the government from removing him.
Yes.
So he was there. The Attorney General appealed, and the Attorney General had good grounds. I dare say good grounds, because I believe the court fell into error. The Attorney General filed this appeal. Then, lo and behold, we are told that they are negotiating a settlement. So I thought that we would hear that the contractor will compensate the government some money and remove from the site. Because this government, 2 ministers at least, repeatedly said to the public about the gross breaches of contract and about it is in a state of emergency, etc., etc. Rather than compensate, rather than getting the contractor to compensate, this government entered into a settlement rewarding the contractor. $1.17 billion.
That's right.
When questions started to be asked, well, why did you pay this sum of money? You have filed an appeal. Why not prosecute your appeal?
Right.
You have said that this contractor breached this contract. Why you have not sued him for breach? Why are you rewarding him for this breach? 3 ministers offered explanation. And in those explanations, they conveyed the clear impression that this contractor had filed some proceedings against them, claiming 10 million US, and they managed to persuade the contractor to accept about 5.7 million US as a settlement of his claim. Well, I even questioned that. I said, why would you settle at such exorbitant sum, and the case, not a shred of evidence has led, there has been no trial, nobody settles a matter like that.
Yeah.
But I said, out of an abundance of caution, let me go and find this case that they're speaking about.
Right.
I went to the Supreme Court registry, and I checked every case filed for 2015 and 2016, and I am unable to find up to now this infamous case that they led the nation to believe was filed by the contractor, claiming against them 10 million US dollars. There is no such case. So they settled out of court a non-existent case. 10 million, 5.7 million US dollars, 1.1 billion. Now, Gail, when you take all of this into account, this was a 10 million US dollar contract for a 10-year period.
Right.
This contractor was allowed to get away scotch-free with less than 5 years of substandard work,
Right.
and got the $10 million. Because when you check the amount of money he received under the PPP government,
Yeah.
and you add that to the 1.17 billion that he has received under this administration, the man got nearly 10 million US for doing less than 5 years of a 10-year contract, shoddy work.
Unbelievable. And then remember too that in the documents in Parliament, they had already paid BK 500 million, and that what they came to Parliament was the second tranche of the 500 million, and they said 2017 budget would have the final third tranche to pay him a total of 1.17, and it is Minister Bulkan, the most vociferous critic of BK International at Hagsbash, who brought this department, defended it.
That's correct. And when the details are going to come out soon, the first payment, I am told, was made since January.
Before the budget.
Yes, before the budget,
Ah,
since January. And you will recall that one newspaper carried an article in about March of this year in which the newspaper disclosed that this settlement had taken place. And the Attorney General came out viciously criticizing the newspaper, saying that they are currently negotiating the settlement, that there has not been any settlement as yet.
Right.
Do you recall that?
yes.
But they had already paid money since January.
But there's no paper trail. The supplementary financial papers that were brought for this year in August don't reflect that there was an earlier payment of 500. The budget doesn't reflect that. So how did they pay this $500 million? There's no paper trail. Because it
What-
certainly wasn't in the 2015 budget that they could have used, and it certainly wasn't in the 2016 because the budget didn't pass in February.
When one takes all the facts and circumstances of this one settlement
Yeah,
into
exactly.
account,
Yeah.
it really burdens you not to conclude that this deal is permeated with corruption.
Absolutely.
3 ministers' names are called and how much they have received.
Oh,
I understand one felt excluded, and he got at the final end. Close to the end, he got a small piece of 100,000 US. But the bulk of the money, I understand, was shared between 2 ministers.
Really?
I'm trying to get the details out, but I know one received 100,000 US, and I'm prepared to say that on TV.
And by the way, too, you know, I got a report that Congress Place is being beautified for the Congress coming up
The biennial
at the
Congress.
end of August. And the equipment that one is seeing there belong to 2 companies, BK
Okay.
International and Global Chung.
Oh,
And when asked, it was said that this is through PNC Congress. They're arranging this, and this is, and so forth. So whether it's government money being used, or whether it is that the companies that have got very lucrative support from this government are giving back, you know, to the PNC party now.
well, the global company, that Global Chung company,
Yes,
is
that's-
the company that did the bulk of the Durban Park work.
And Georgetown too. Georgetown cleanup.
And in particular, the Durban Park project. And the BK just benefited from a multi-billion-dollar settlement.
Well, he's had several ones because it's Hogbosh, and then there's also the one with the steel, the
With the
containers.
steel, yes.
You know, I mean, he has done extraordinarily well. As according to Mr. Trotman, the people who invested their money in the financiers of the election campaign must be rewarded for their and have their political. There must be a political investment, or they must be
Gail,
rewarded for their political investments.
We must also remind viewers out there that this is the very BK that this government, when they were in the opposition,
Yeah.
both PNC and AFC, relentlessly criticized for years. He was part of, Ramjatan used to call him, he's part of the bees. And
bees.
the bees. And today, this famous bee is now in their bonnet.
You know, I don't know if you remember, in the 1992 elections, there was an article in Starbuck News, I believe, about the banana split.
Yes.
And that certain companies even divided their family members to make sure they supported both the PPP and the PNC. But I'm watching the time, and I've got some people on the phone, particularly some people from out of town. So let's switch and give them some time. Okay, Anil?
Yes, yes, of course.
Thanks. Whoops, what did I do? I always do this. Okay, all right. Oh, there's one coming in. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance. Could you turn off your radio?
Hello.
Or turn down the radio? Hello, I'm hearing you.
Yes, with all this new thing what happened, them not sell.
I know, things are bad, huh?
What's happening here just now?
Well, you know, we have to keep on struggling because we have to make sure the next elections that people come out and we vote and the PPPC is back in power.
Okay, dear.
All right, thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Good afternoon. I would like to make a statement to the cane juice and things that were coming from foreign in Guyana.
Oh, yes, that was raised at the manufacturers. Yes.
Yes. I think they said it's developing this country, but it's developing the next country.
Yeah, well, we have trade, but there's no reason why some of these products can't be produced here. And some have been, but they're not getting the support. I don't know if, Anil, you want to say something on that?
Carla, what we have to understand is that unless we have access to cheap power in this country, we cannot compete with the world in terms of manufacturing. And therefore, it will be cheaper in a free market economy for persons to bring cane juice all the way from Canada and sell it here cheaper. Now, I'm not condoning that, but we have to find ways and means of protecting our local industries. But the fundamental problem is access to cheap power, and that is what the hydropower, Amila Falls hydropower, was intended to do, to equip our people to compete in a competitive global economic environment. And this opposition, this AFC, APNU, when they were in the opposition, they killed that project. And I said then, and I will always say, when they killed that project, they condemned the people of this country to 50 more years of poverty.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you know that many of the arguments that took place in the 10th Parliament, some of those arguments that went on are coming to light, and I think people are beginning to now understand when we were warning them that these were the consequences of the rejection of the Myla Falls project and the bills that were brought, and the CARICOM external tariff, the customs issues, and the bill with the hydropower and debt and so on, all these, and money laundering, the money laundering bill, all these things we warned about.
And what they're doing at Wales, for example, they said that they're going to diversify.
Yes.
And they're going to Gail, they don't understand. Diversification is good, but you're going to diversify to spread cash crop farming and expand agriculture. Where is the market?
Yeah.
We are producing now more than we are consuming. You go to border market any given Thursday, Friday night, and you will see vegetables, fresh vegetables, being dumped in that canal and being dumped in the garbage. You go to Stabrook Market, you go to any market, you go to Annandale, Lusignan, Monterey Post, Blairmont. Food are thrown away at the end of the market. We cannot consume enough. We have to find market.
Yeah.
We can only find market if we are able to package and process.
Yes.
We can only do that if we have cheap power.
Yes.
We can't do it at this
At
rate
any-
of
no,
cost.
exactly.
And that is the problem.
Hello, good afternoon, matters of public importance.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to our program. Can I?
No, I'm trying to, I don't know, this morning, Naeem Chan. Hello?
Yes, go ahead. You're on a TV program.
I had a program, and then the girl gave a tip for arthritis in the hand. I don't know how I can get back that.
All right.
I don't know that
The
one.
operator is listening to you. Perhaps he can help you at the end of the program.
Okay, could you call this number at the end of the program, because we only use this for 1 hour every Thursday, so the operator would know what that is, okay?
So I can call back.
Call back this number after 1:30, okay?
Call it back for today?
After 1:30, our program finishes at 1:30. Okay, bye-bye. Hello, good afternoon, matters of public importance. Welcome to our program.
Hello, good afternoon to you and Mr. Menendez.
Yes, sure. Thank you.
I'm just calling to tell you that this government promised us since last year to make a road in Anna Katrina. Until now, Anna Katrina New Houses still don't have road than winds. We have big ways in here.
Which part of
Anna Katrina.
Anna Katrina? Not over the seawall side or over the other side of the public road?
Over the other side
This is a new scheme.
new houses.
Okay.
And we need this road because we have little children to go to school from September.
How many people live in that area? Do you have a basic idea?
I think it's about 70 house lots is in here.
Okay, all right. Well, what we'll do is we'll tell our members of parliament who are in Region 3.
Yes.
We have Mr. Irfan Ali, Mr. Ganga Prasad, Mr. Kumal Chan.
Yes.
We'll bring this to their attention so they can and the RDC councillors and the regional chairman raise it with them to see what they say and what they can do, okay?
Okay, thank you
And
very
if I
much.
get any information, I'll be able to report back to you on the next program.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Bye-bye.
Yes, you're welcome.
Hello? Hi. Hello?
Mr. Nandlal was saying just now about cash crop.
Yes.
And like this government don't have no brain to do anything, so I think they should rear pigs instead. The world needs more that type of, meat.
Yeah, call it pig rearing is good. Any form of, I have always, my philosophy is, and my belief is, that agriculture is the only industry that can propel us out of the state that we are in. But it has to be an industry that is significantly supported by cheap electricity.
Yeah, because you were saying that they have an oversupply in terms of vegetables. So,
That's correct.
Yeah.
and the market is not there. So
The market is not, we are
I
a
think
small
I think
population.
the market for pigs is in great demand throughout the world. And I think they should focus the mind on that because they seem to have no brain in doing anything.
But how do we get the pork packaged for export to meet the EU and other international prevailing standards?
Yeah,
Remember, food, there are very strict international standards
I know
that we
that
must
we-
comply with. So we need the processing plants here, but we can't do it because we don't have the power. You understand?
Okay. I thought it right. Okay,
But also
okay,
one
then.
of the things-
I understand you. Okay then.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. One of the things, Anil, is that although you're saying there's a glut of food in many places, there are parts of Ghana in the interior where you don't get these vegetables, and in fact, people want them. Part of it is access, the road
Yes.
access. So the Linden Letham Road, for example, which is something we were working on and trying to get investors and working with the Brazilian government and others on, that so that vegetables and fruit and other things
and
could
this-
get in.
this
Same thing with the
government-
Pacaraimas,
And this government
Region 7.
we have never heard a word about those big, massive projects from this government.
No.
And the foundation has already been laid. I remember attending meetings at Foreign Affairs Ministry where we have memorandum of understanding with Brazil in relation to that road and the Deepwater Harbor.
And another hydro project in the Upper Mazaruni.
That's correct.
They're silent. We raised it remember, some of these issues were raised in the 2015 budget debate when we were dealing with the budget debate. And there was no answer whatsoever to these things. And these issues seem to have gone dead.
But when you listen to like, for example, I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful to His Excellency the President, but the President keeps talking about breadfruit. I don't understand what is his obsession. I mean, we are living in the year 2016. When he went to Linden, we had projects in Linden. We had call center. We had a factory investor who was interested in making microchips
Yeah.
in Linden. Microchips, computer microchips.
Right.
The president went and he's speaking about breadfruit chips. You see how far apart we are? I don't know what we will do with breadfruit chip. It's good, it's tasty, I like it. But
So do I.
as a national industry,
Okay, one of the things, Anna, I wanted to first of all thank you very much for a wonderful program with you. It's always delightful. But I do have an issue I want to just bring to the public's attention, and this is one last issue, a little bit off the course of what we did with, but it has the making of scandalous. It may not have reached scandal or scam yet.
Okay.
And this is the instruction of the Ministry of the Presidency for the removal of the Walter Roth Museum, and to convert that building into part of a mega complex for State House, which will include Walter Roth Museum and the National Trust. And they've been told that they will have to move. Now, former ministers of Culture, Youth and Sport, Dr. Frank Anthony and myself, started a petition, say, Save the Walter Roth Museum. This museum is very, very special, and there are 3 floors in one building, and what is called the Carriage House, which has other artifacts that are thousands of years old that are too delicate to be moved. First of all, the announcement was that they're going to move the Walter Roth to the western section of the National Museum. When they sent Minister Annette Ferguson to check out the place, she discovered there's no space and decided that they could do an add-on in that grassy patch to the west. However, she was apparently, when she reported there's no room except if they did that, she was told that they can't do that, and therefore then she was sent to the GRA top flat, which is empty, and so put Walter Roth there. Of course, the staff was
GRA
taken.
Camp Street?
No, on post office, the old GRA, right? So they took the staff there, and the staff said absolutely no way. So they're still trying to find a place. This is like the Stabroek Market issue. You move the vendors into a temporary place. He says, we'll give you a place. 6 months later, you can't go back to the market, and now you're stuck at Parliament, what they call a view, with no proper facilities and so on. They did that with also the border market people, the kitty market people. So I'm not trying to make a museum equivalent to a market, but at the same time, you're treating the museum. This is the only museum of its type in the entire English-speaking Caribbean. We're dedicated to our Amerindian people and dealing with anthropology and archaeology. But this has been the greatest insult in modern times to the Amerindian peoples. This is an institution that is something very special to Guyana, which has artifacts in it 7,000 years ago, showing that there were human settlements in Guyana. And in fact, one of the important issues about the contribution of Amerindians that is rarely spoken about, and this museum is able to prove that, and that is that one, the adaptation of civilizations to climate and sustainable development as an example of that. The second thing has to do with, of course, contributing to cultural diversity. And thirdly, by their very settlement in the broadest terms and their occupation of what is the territory called Guyana now, they helped to define the boundaries of Guyana. So when Schonberg came here and was the Boundaries Commissioner, that the fact that there were these Amerindian people, different groups, living along the entire border, what became Guyana, is what defined our border. And that is where part of the challenge with the Venezuelans are, because they were never in this part of, in Guyana, what is called Guyana. So the power of this museum is one of the fact it's a living tribute to the contribution of the first peoples who came here 7,000 years ago and more, and also the artifacts with 7,000 petroglyphs, cultural icons, contributions by former presidents like President Hoyt and Mrs. Jagan, for example, and excavations from all 10 administrative regions of Guyana. So this is like everything they seem to do, off the cut. I don't know if they wake up in the morning and have a smart idea and suddenly decide, maybe they haven't had their coffee yet, I don't know. But I may do something if I didn't have a strong cup of black coffee to steady me. But they wake up in the morning and say, okay, move Walter Roth. Move the National Trust, which, by the way, has the Integrity Commission on top of it.
Yeah.
And they seem disinterested in having an Integrity Commission. So Walter Roth now is told to move. So what I want to tell you viewers about is that those of you who have access to the net through the internet cafes or your own net service at home or whatever, or friends, can you go to www.change.org, petition to President Granger, save the Walter Roth Museum, and sign on to the petition. Support us in trying to prevent the removal of this Walter Roth Museum from where it's located, and that those of you who don't have access to the net, we have hard copies, and that we can leave them at Church Street or Freedom House, as I don't have an office, and nor does Dr. Anthony, and that you can come and sign manually. Those, we've also sent the hard copies into parts of Guyana where there's no net connectivity. And we're aiming to have several thousand signatures. We started about less than 48 hours ago, and we have almost 500 signatures online. So that support this, because this, what you call whimsical approach. The president says it wasn't whimsical, it was well thought of. Who believes that? You didn't consult the National Two Showers Council, you didn't consult any anthropological and archaeological experts on the risk of moving the museum, etc. And then you just announce, we're going to move. You have to move. And in fact, the frightening part of it is that uniformed soldiers came to deliver the message from the ministry of the president. And that, my dear, for those of us who are older and not like you, young Anil, but we remember very, very clearly the vision, in our image in our brain of soldiers delivering and being very present in our country. And just to close, there's a famous painting that won an award by, that is called The Man with the Gun in the Garden, which was done after the 1985 rigged elections, and done by a Guyanese painter, Mrs. Bassad. It's an absolute beautiful painting. Bernadette, yes, and it won an award. And of course, it is in the Castellani House. I don't know how often it is being put out for viewing. However, as soon as I heard that story about Walter Roth, the vision of that painting came straight into my brain, that the man with the gun, and it's a soldier, obviously, dressed among the shadows of the botanical gardens, almost semi-hidden. And this was Bernadette's painting to do with the post-1985 elections, where the army was very present. So I hope that you have found the program of interest. I know that we always want more time, particularly for the callers in, and we've got to find a way to rectify this. I think I'm going to have to twig Mr. Sharma or CNN to see if we can get some more time, because we have so many members of Parliament who are doing such valuable work, and Anil in particular is a wonderful person who is doing extraordinary work in the party and, of course, in Parliament and in the courts. So, Anil, thank you very much for coming on the program. It was delightful, and I hope, as usual, you'll come back.
Of course, once you invite me, I'm always ready to be here.
And so, in closing, have a blessed week, and we'll meet each other next Thursday, 12:30 to 1:30. Please remember, no drinking and driving. We want you and your families to be all healthy and safe and so on. And so, have a blessed week. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Ta-ta.